To part two of our discussions on marketing to kids and teens. Last week we discussed what influences kids to have a preference for certain brands.
And today we look at what influence digital has on our teens. How brand conscious have they become?
Well, joining us to share their insights are Alex Okosi, Senior Vice President and MD, MTV Networks Africa, Jason Levine, MD of HDI Youth Marketeers, and to tell us what teens think themselves, Cloni Dichabi, as Junior Board Member of Jason's company. I'm Femi Foxon.
And I'm Jackie Nell, and you're watching Media and Money. Well, what makes certain ads popular amongst the youth? What drives them to particular brands? Well, before we get into our discussions, let's take a look at what the kids had to say.
Sometimes marketers try and force the humour on and they forget about the product that they're actually advertising.
You go to the shop and it actually isn't, so they lie to you to get the game.
Less yada yada yada, more ching ching.
The new KFC product tones was absolutely fabulous, and the new crushes with the sword and the woman in the red boots, and brilliant advertising. Big ups to KFC.
Pick and Pay has remained relevant as well. They do a lot of helping in communities.
I think it's relevant and we can all relate to a character. We all know a shop owner like that.
It's brilliant because it uses humor and it uses generalizations, but generalizations that are true so nobody gets offended, and so it's so funny.
It's great because you can see old people playing it and you can see also old people love it. I think it's very funny.
This one's for all the single ladies.
Very homey.
Okay, well, the Hilux ad, never ever seen anything like it. I loved it.
I like it because it's a dog from Benoni with a smart mouth.
What's up with sheep? Always getting lost and stuck. Help me, I'm stuck in a hole.
The Nike Tiger Woods ad is so haunting, but in a good way.
Because there are two things an ad can do. It can either be funny or give you the goosebump effect. And from the beginning of this ad, you just get goosebumps.
Easy 'cause you're beautiful. And then it's just to say the crow's part comes in, then he eats it from the dog. I'll never do that.
It's quite evident that humor appeals across the board here, isn't it? Is that what it is to make ads and brands popular, Jason?
It's a tough one, Jackie, because it is exactly what it is. So every year when we run the Cruiser study, the number one criteria for success, the number one trigger is humor, and not all brands can be humorous. And
right.
Brands, you heard one of the comments in the clip that brands that aren't innately funny and try to be funny don't really work out. So we always say funny's on the money, but it's not appropriate for every brand. Kids just love humorous ads though.
And one of the kids said you can't use any generalization. It has to be a generalization that's actually true.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like the BP ads which we saw, which were so successful in the Cruiser Awards, they won across multiple ages and multiple categories, are just a great illustration of human truth. But I think if BP wasn't a sponsor of the World Cup, you'd go, how on earth does that relate? And then it would have been nowhere near as popular.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I think it was certainly an exciting year and a different year for marketers and brands because of the World Cup. Cloni, as a teenager, professional teenager, tell us, what do you like when you look at ads? What appeals to you?
I think mostly the ad has to be, like Jason said, has to be humorous, has to be clever, cunning, and sharp. It needs to give you straight detail. It mustn't give you ups and downs, but it should give you the ad straight in your hand, look at it, and then explain it by itself.
What's ups and downs?
Like ups and downs, it shouldn't give you bits and pieces. No, like for example, if it shouldn't give you half a glass of water, and then later on come back like 2 days later and then fill up the glass and say that's the full thing. It should explain it once and for all.
What about heartwarming things? You're a boy. Doesn't work.
So here's a question. If your friends think something's cool, like, hey dude, did you see that Coca-Cola ad? Then would you go with what your friends say, or are you kind of making up your own mind as you go along?
I think it depends who you are. For me, I would say no, not really. If I don't like it, I don't like it. But it depends. If I don't really catch it at first, I would go back, look at it again, then think about it, and then come back. If I liked it, I'll tell them I liked it. If I didn't, no.
Alex, your thoughts on what Cloney is saying from an MTV point of view?
Well, from yes, there are young people are definitely incredibly more discerning. They understand ads. They know that they're being marketed to. But I think, to his point, it's really important that the ads are relevant, that they really speak to the young people and that they understand and they can relate to it. Because if it's just, as you mentioned, something that they need to spend a whole bunch of time trying to decipher, the message may get lost. The marketer may not be able to convey what they really want people to do, which is ultimately buy their product. So I think that he's definitely there in terms of what he's saying, that it's really, really important that it gets to the point, but in some ways, as Jason mentioned, it does make that ad a little bit better if it elicits some emotion, if it's funny, if it's tugging
as long as it's not heartwarming.
Well, look, trust me, I'm sure he likes the heartwarming stuff. He just doesn't want to admit it on television.
Yeah, but the rest of Africa, is there a similar scenario that we're seeing, that the strength of the ad is very important?
No, absolutely. I think that it's definitely developing. The ad market in the rest of the continent is definitely developing. That's why you see a lot of companies actually come to South Africa to shoot their ads, because of the quality that the market has to offer. But I think what's also been happening over the last few years is that people are developing creative is being developed in the rest of the continent. People are creating ads in places like Nigeria and Kenya, but South Africa has been kind of set the bar in terms of what is a good ad, and people are tapping into the creative here. But getting much better in the rest of the continent as well. We play obviously across Africa, so we see the development on a day-to-day basis, and it's quite exciting.
So how different would it be to an ad that you play in Kenya versus the one that you'd play in Nigeria versus the one in South Africa?
I would say the difference would probably be that a higher percentage of the ads in South Africa will be of better quality visually, and the creative may be a little bit better. But I think that in the rest of the continent, the ads are quite more straightforward. You know what they're trying to say to you. They want you to buy this product, and it can also be quite humorous. And it's not just it is creative, but I think it's a little more direct.
But what I think, if I understand you correctly, where she's trying to come from is, are ads localized for every market, or is it one ad that gets played out in every region?
Well, the reality is that ads need to be more localized now. When we started 5 years ago, MTV Base, which is our Africa offering, a lot of companies were just kind of running Pan-African ads. But what you find is that the more localized the ad is, the more the young person can identify and say, that person in that ad looks like me. He's talking to me. Is in an environment that I recognize. The better it connects. So a lot of brands are now creating ads that are very much more localized.
Cloney, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Do you want to be spoken to as an individual?
Yeah, I'd like to. And the thing that makes a great ad, it's humor. And if an ad is clever, like it reaches to you and gives you some emotion, that's great also. But if it's clever and catching and interesting, that's what really keeps you in the ad and makes you enjoy the ad even more. Because
so what brands are getting it right? Give us some examples.
For example, the MTV Switch thing, it's like there's this guy who's dressed in a whole earth ball, and then a guy who's busy polluting and all that, and then the earth is trying to tell him, no, don't do this. But he keeps on ignoring him, and then eventually in one of the ads he changes, and then something like that. Things that...
Yeah, but wouldn't you watch anything that MTV plays?
Meaning?
Like, it doesn't have to be ad specific. It can be a bad ad, but you still like it.
I think what Finley's trying to say is that you're loyal towards the brand MTV. So whatever MTV will play, you'll still watch it, right or wrong?
It depends.
Okay.
Because it's not really straightforward. If the ad is bad and you're waiting for a program that's interesting to carry on playing, obviously you wait through the ad. But if the ad is not that great, you'll change the channel and then go back to the previous.
Alex, you're not paying him enough to support him.
But I think that what he's talking about has been the reason why, as MTV, we have been successful. I mean, as you look at MTV, we started as a music video channel, but now we've evolved into, we created reality programming, lifestyle
and an
shows.
MTV generation, what's that all about?
Well, I mean, it's a generation of obviously cutting edge young people. I mean, it's a generation that celebrated that their own voice, providing a platform for them is what we really thrive on trying to do every single day. It's not about dictating to them, it's about letting them have, communicate and showcase their talent, showcase their music, showcase their lifestyle. We don't determine what young people do. But we always try to stay at the forefront to know what they're doing, to be able to show them what.
Because there's certainly an influence that media has and a responsibility.
A huge influence, and hence the reason that we also want to make sure as MTV, and we work hard at that, to make sure that the ads that we air on our channels, whether it be MTV or Nickelodeon, is very honest and is relevant, and it's also responsible, because I think, if it's not responsible, then young people can, if they're not at the right age, they may misinterpret it and not be able to understand whether it's fantasy or real.
But are you seeing this MTV generation in the townships as well?
Well, look, I think the power of the MTV brand, whether you've seen it or not seen it, I think one of the things that enabled us to have a successful business in Africa so far is that even if you haven't seen the brand, you've heard about it in some way, shape, or form. And what you know about it is that it's exciting, it's global, it allows you to see yourself, it allows you to see other people out there, it allows you to see great shows. So even if you don't know or seen the MTV brand, is in some way, shape, or form, you find that people know about it,
Jason, your thoughts on the responsibility of media that we just touched on with MTV?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Mark, there's a different onus when you're advertising to young people. I think there's an increasing understanding of the sophistication of young people in this country, and the ASA has recognized that. So the industry self-regulation code now dictates how marketers should speak to 12-year-olds and under, because there's a strong recognition that beyond that, people are critically conscious, able to make decisions. They're not going to be duped by marketing or advertising. But that said, I mean, I think you can't extract brands from young people's lives. They don't want them to be extracted. They enjoy the entertainment they provide. They enjoy engaging with them. And that does put a responsibility on marketers to just do it with a bit of caution.
I want to get back to, let's talk about Nickelodeon. And I want to know what your stance is on the advertising of HFSS products in terms of Nickelodeon specifically.
Well, I mean, I think Nickelodeon as a brand, what we really stand for is responsible advertising to young people, to kids. I mean, Nick, we target from preschoolers from 2 to 6 to, kids to tweens to teens. So it's really important that the marketer and the advertisers are really responsible, and that what they advertise or market to kids is very appropriate and is honest. So there's no innuendos. You're not trying to incent someone to buy a sandwich by getting a toy. That is really enables young people not to. It doesn't have that effect where a kid is saying, "Mom, go buy me this."
But bottom line, are you going to advertise McDonald's, Wimpy, fast foods, that kind of thing on the channel?
We would advertise on the channel, but it has to be appropriate, right? It has to be the messaging. For us, we really want to make sure we promote a balanced lifestyle. So if we're advertising a fast food, in that shot, in that ideal, there should be also healthy stuff going on. There should be, for instance, a salad with it, etc., so that you're getting the holistic offering that makes it a much more healthier lifestyle for the young person.
Yeah. Now, just before we go to an ad break, Cloney, what is an MTV generation? What does that mean to you?
I think MTV generation to me means more trend-setting, more out there, like everyone's talking about it. Different events that are happening, social.
Is that all social engagement?
Yeah, social engagement mostly.
Would you be politically aware of what's happening in the country?
Not really, yeah, you would. Like, for example, if there could be a funny ad or a funny joke, like I saw a music video on MTV from Freshly Ground, that change advert where there was the sing Gabi and all, and like things like that.
Humorous
things and smart, clever, cutting things are very enjoyable and easy to interpret. Yeah, that's the MTV generation.